And Facebook Live.
Cool. Hello,
Hi,
people.
people.
Cyberland.
What's that?
I said, hello, people in Cyberland.
Hello, imaginary people that may not actually exist.
Are they
This is
imaginary?
like a-
Think that they aren't imaginary?
I don't know. We're here.
I presume all three of us have loads of Facebook friends we've never met.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
The vast majority, actually, I think.
Yeah. Well, especially in my association with a certain gray-bearded gentleman to my left, or my left on my screen here. I picked up lots of friends. I'm like, never met these people before. I don't understand most of the languages that they're posting on Facebook in, but it's super cool.
Fair. So we, based on recent events, ended up, Paul had the great idea to talk about active shooters. And, you know, obviously this is something that's come up a lot in the news recently, and it kind of bleeds over into third-party violence in general, things that you aren't necessarily directly involved in, and we're kind of using active shooter as an example, or active shooter situations. I like mass murder better, but I guess, you know,
I say spree killer.
spree killing works too. So, Rory, what are your thoughts?
I've got a bunch, and to be fair, I've never been in an active shooter situation. My son was, but that doesn't mean I don't necessarily have strong opinions. So the thing I'd throw out for everyone to start is these are rare. No matter how much the media starts playing them up, they are incredibly rare. When you start,
What was your line, Malcolm? How not to get struck by lightning?
Yeah, how not to get struck by lightning, or managing unicorn attacks.
Yeah. Well, and just because they're rare doesn't mean they don't happen. And if something's 1,000,000 to 1 shot, the fact that you're in it, that doesn't matter what the odds were anymore because you're in it. So that's an aside thing. But when people start getting panicked about something that's low risk, they have a tendency to try to fix a problem. And a lot of times the fixes have a bigger downside than the problem itself, especially when the problem is really rare but really scary. And so that's one of the things that I look at is this a real threat, and to what level? And it's one of those extremely rare, high risk. And one of the things that I look at, just because I'm an asshole like that, is where are these numbers coming from that they're using to jack up the fear? Because there was a big scandal where NPR last year found out that the number of school shootings was just fucking made up, just a blatant lie, and they ran with that. There's one group that's been trying to put together a number of and I'm thinking school shooting because that's one I researched a couple of years ago. But they were including like a lover's triangle in the break room, or a gang killed body dropped in the parking lot as school shootings. And when they actually went down,
they hit the windows or the walls or something like that.
There was at least one. They were including anything within 150 yards of the school property.
And someone taking a shot at a school that had been closed for years was included in the list of school shootings. So it's
actually, that's the most literal definition if you think about it.
Someone shot a school.
Yeah, it's one of those, you know, they can tweak it to do those numbers, but when you actually, you know, broke down the numbers of people killed in schools by getting shot, the rate was right up there with struck by lightning or bee sting deaths.
Eric Shaver said, never been in one either. I have a good friend, a professor that was on site during the Virginia Tech shooting. We were emailing and texting about it. Crazy. Somebody else, a guy committed suicide in the parking lot of an out-of-use school shooting. Keith Webb. We have the three of us have a mutual friend that survived the Ohio nightclub shooter.
Yeah.
You know.
Anyway, Rory, finish what you're saying.
So it's basically, you know, I have some fairly strong opinions and advice on it. But the thing I would look at, just like me, I've never been in one, and like anything, if you want to actually have, you need to survive about 10 or 20 before you get a handle on what works and what doesn't. And you
Mm.
be successful on all 20, because otherwise you aren't around to talk about shit. But every single person talking about this, teaching about this, including us, is theorizing. They're pulling it out of their ass, and they do not know. They can research their ass off, but with black swans, when something is so rare, it's really hard to find commonalities, and most of the commonalities are false or irrelevant. It's it is a fact that in the last 20 years, like only one mass shooting has happened in a place that didn't have a sign that said no guns allowed. Okay, but Greg Elephants looked at one of the guys who had left notes on all of his stuff, and that may be true. He happened to pick the theater. It was the Aurora, Colorado thing, but in his own notes, that was never part of his decision-making process. So the fact that we can pick out things that look like they make a pattern to us, even when they make sense to us, does not mean in these extremely rare things that a pattern actually exists. You know, all of them have bullied. No, they haven't. A lot of them were bullies. All of them had mental health history. No, they didn't. Some of them didn't.
Jeff said, the definition of mass shooting has been changed to include any incident in which 4 people or more are shot, which has by itself effectively increased the number of mass shootings tenfold.
It's because it was 4 people killed was the original.
Right.
And that's still, as far as I know, the one that the FBI uses. And they break up, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that I'm not going to get into. Because statistics is everyone. If you actually get good numbers from a good source and you actually know what you're talking about, you can get some statistical information. If you don't know where the numbers came from, you don't know what they're counting, you don't know what their operational definitions are. And there was one Harvard put out, and Harvard is not necessarily gun friendly, but probably 4 years ago now, they put out a study that showed that increasing concealed weapons permit carriers decrease crime vastly. And it was solid. Another guy, I don't remember his name right now, came out with a study to disprove that. And he actually had to invent new mathematics to get the conclusion that he wanted. He invented math. And it
Rachel just said there are lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah, and statistics is one of the ones that it takes a lot of both knowledge of statistics as a process and knowing where the numbers came from and how they were filtered.
And which questions are asked and where they're asked and how you and what kind of elements went into it and whether or not you're even looking at the right things to begin with. Like it.
Absolutely. I know you guys know what a push-pull is. Okay.
No, I don't. I'm not even going to sit here and lie. Go ahead.
Anyone that doesn't, a push-pull is a pull. They pull people.
Oh, a push-pull. I thought you said a push-pull. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So the questions are designed to get a specific answer.
Yeah.
One of the most obvious degrees is a phone poll, and the question that they asked me was, "How do you feel about the changes in medical laws this year?" And so I asked them the state laws or the federal laws, because they both changed. And the person asked the question, goes, "I don't know. That's not on my script." Well, if you don't know what fucking question you're asking, then my answer can't possibly help you. And that was, they just wanted people to say they were for it or they were against it. If it came out the way that they wanted, then they would use that in their advertising for whoever they were trying to get elected.
And I think the challenge when it comes to stuff like spree killing, gun related or otherwise, is that people have boxes for violence where violence is fine, where you just doesn't mean anything to you if it happens over there. It's really just the fact that you stepped outside the box, and it's dramatic and interesting. And we make these people notorious, and you learn their names and you get their backstory and all the above. And so for me, it's like this is lightning strikes and unicorn attacks. It does happen. That's true. Doesn't happen all that often. Also true. And it's not really something you need to plan around, because if that's the case, if the standard is stuff as rare as mass shootings or what have you is what you're planning around, you better be planning around a lot of other stuff. There's a whole bunch of other things that happen more that we consider to be ridiculous and far-fetched. So
I'm gonna do a pitch real quick, because one of the things we're going to be talking about, not in April but in May, is going to be strategy.
mhm.
And this is one of the things. If you go principles based, and this is why we had this crossover. Should we talk about active shooter or all third party interventions, or but if you have the principles down and you have a solid grasp on those, there's really no difference.
Yeah, it's true.
And so you can get a protocol or set of priorities, or however you want to frame it in your head, that nothing's going to work all the time. You know, the first person shot in an active shooter probably had no clue anything was happening. It's the second, third, and fourth probably heard or saw something.
Mhm.
But that aside, the getting your brain blown into a mist. If you can have a plan for everything, and the plans aren't that different. An evacuation plan is an evacuation plan, whether you're talking about a fire or someone shooting.
Yeah.
So there is stuff there that we can talk about and give people a clue. But someone wants a prescriptive answer for something so rare is going to be SOL.
Yeah. And I think you're right that you can create a plan that works for most things most of the time.
Mhm.
And that's generally going to be combined with some, shameless plug, adaptability. It's going to generally work pretty well for most of the stuff that you're going to face. And with the third party intervention stuff in general, there's been a big push to talk about third party intervention in other circumstances. And to me, the calculus really doesn't change. Is this something that you feel like you need to deal with? To what level are you willing to deal with it? What level of what cost are you willing to pay? And then base everything working backwards from that. So if you decide, you want to be Harry Hero and you're ready to die on the street right now for this complete and utter stranger, then okay, your planning situation is going to be very different than somebody who says what's the quote, not my monkeys, not my circus, or whatever. It's going to vary. And so those are decisions that I think, whether we're talking about active shooter, whether we're talking about a DV call next door, those help you make those types of decisions. The things we can all do, however, are the basics, like planning for making sure that your people are safe. And then also, if you choose to, being a good witness and following up in ways that don't directly involve you.
So I actually have a good story from today. Not my monkeys, not my circus, but it's 6. So I'm going to have to put that into the, we're going to have to switch over to the Chiron chat. We also have people in the waiting room, guys. So for everybody joining us on Facebook, as always, thank you guys very much. We'll be here next Sunday as well. One of these days, we're going to show up a little bit earlier, but not this week. Not this week. Malcolm was busy wrapping up. In all seriousness, what was the quote earlier, Malcolm? Let's see if I can make Malcolm blush. That was the best 1-hour lesson I think I've ever gotten on self-defense. Was something I just heard half hour ago, one of the cohort people tell Malcolm about his presentation today. So slight bias, but it was pretty cool. It's really neat. I enjoy thoroughly getting to be on the outside, watching, listening, and participating. I want the students watching, listening, and participating the most, so I try to sit back. But like when you present, Rory presents, Tammy presents, it's very particularly cool for me to get to sit there and play student as well. So I like that part. So with that said, Facebook, thank you guys very much. We'll see you guys in the cohort call in about 30 seconds.
Cool.
Later, y'all.
Bye.